In the United States of America, intelligence agencies and politicians are sounding the alarm after the murder of Charlie Kirk, a close associate of Donald Trump, a Republican activist who played an important role in spreading conservative ideas among American youth. Essentially, he is called the leader of the youth wing of the Make America Great Again movement. The search for the shooter continues and his motives are unknown, but politicians and commentators agree in calling what happened a political assassination. Republicans have publicly accused the Democrats of provoking the activist's murder. And on social media, there are already calls for violence, including mass violence. And now experts in America are saying that American politics, as we know, is prone to murders, shootings, and violence. But there is a terrible feeling that the situation is only going to get worse now. Because not only has there been a murder, but also a radicalization of society. That's why some people have even started talking about, the prospect of a civil war in America. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is September 11th. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I want to remind you that this YouTube channel releases several news and analytical segments every day so that you can stay up to date with all the news. That's why I recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel. Also, I recommend subscribing to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, conservative activist and ally of United States President Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, has died after being injured at an event at a university in Utah. This was officially announced by President Donald Trump himself. Quote, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk has died. No one understood or connected with young people in the United States like Charlie. Everyone, especially me, loved and respected him, and now he's gone. With us. Melania and I express our condolences to his wonderful wife, Erica, and Charlie's family. We love you." Briefly, let me remind you that on September 10, Kirk was shot as a result of an assassination attempt while he was speaking to university students in Utah. Videos have appeared on social media showing Kirk being shot while speaking in front of a tent in the courtyard of Utah Valley University. And judging by the videos, the shooter hit Kirk in the neck. I won't show this footage on YouTube, you can watch it on the Telegram channel. United States President Donald Trump has promised to punish those responsible for the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And on Wednesday evening, the police released a statement saying that 2 men had been detained. One was questioned by law enforcement, but both were later released. Later, in a video address recorded in the Oval Office and posted on social media, President Trump promised that the shooter would be found. Quote, "My administration will find everyone involved in this atrocity and other acts of political violence, including organizations." Donald Trump, who regularly calls some of his political opponents radical leftists and warns that they pose an existential threat to the nation, decided to condemn violent political rhetoric. And here is another quote from Trump. "For many years, the radical left has compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the worst mass murderers and criminals in the world." Significantly, former Democratic candidate Kamala Harris wrote the following on social media X: "There is no place for political violence in America. I condemn this act, and we must work together to prevent further violence." So who is Charlie Kirk? Let's figure it out. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have seen clips of his public debates on all sorts of topics on social media. Interestingly, he wasn't really interested in a political career as such. His name never appeared on the lists of candidates for any prominent political positions. Although Kirk's protégés were elected to Congress and received prominent positions in the Trump administration, for example, J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Charlie Kirk was 18 years old when he organized the group Turning Point United States of America, which, according to him, was supposed to provide a conservative response to the numerous left liberal voices. He was closely friends with Donald Trump Jr., the younger son of the current president, who apparently was the one funding his activities. Many of Kirk's views and statements were controversial and polemical. I would even put it that way. In particular, he called American universities hotbeds of totalitarianism, claiming that supporters of left liberal ideas clearly dominate there. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Charlie Kirk supported some of the conspiracy theories that emerged at that time. On migration issues, he adhered to the Great Replacement theory, implying that migrants should not be allowed in. At one time, Kirk harshly criticized Martin Luther King, the legendary fighter for African American rights, who, in a cruel twist of fate, was also shot during one of his public speeches in 1968. Kirk promoted Christian politics, and like many activists from this political camp, he was a staunch opponent of abortion. Well, as for what he said about Ukraine, I'll record a separate episode about that. After all, he was the one who spoke out against helping our country, supported Russian rhetoric and Russian propaganda, and, for example, claimed that Zelensky was illegally elected president from the very beginning. And that's not surprising because Charlie Kirk was one of the most prominent supporters and allies of Donald Trump in the media space, proudly calling himself a member of the Make America Great Again movement. Kirk was close to President Trump and he was a frequent guest at the White House. Moreover, Kirk even influenced the appointment of prominent figures in Donald Trump's administration. According to American media, it was Charlie Kirk who convinced Donald Trump to choose James David Vance for the role of vice president. Kirk, according to the New York Times, also started a campaign in support of appointing Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. So, in other words, two controversial figures in the Trump administration were specifically lobbied by Charlie Kirk. And now more and more people are saying that violence in the United States could lead to a real civil war. In the United States, there has been a series of political assassinations or attempts over the past year. Just a year ago, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump himself during the election campaign in Pennsylvania. And in June of this year, the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman, a Democrat, and her husband were killed in their home. At that time, the FBI called this murder a horrific act of targeted violence committed because the victims were elected officials. Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot, but they survived. Another Democrat, again Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, along with his family, escaped from an arson attack on the governor's mansion in April. In other words, the assassination attempts have become bipartisan, if I can say it that way. And as American analysts assure, there is a terrible feeling that the situation is getting worse and that political violence will not subside until one of the sides wins. There are now concerns that Kirk's assassination will provoke even more violence, repression, and deepen the cycle of political bloodshed. Trump has already called Charlie Kirk a martyr for truth and freedom, and today he announced that he will posthumously award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Let me explain here. The Medal of Freedom is awarded to people, quote, those who have significantly contributed to United States national security, global peace, and the public and cultural life of the United States and worldwide. And of course, this is where politics started to come into play. For example, on Wednesday evening on Capitol Hill, tensions escalated when Republican Anna Paulina Luna shouted at the Democrats in the House chamber, saying, quote, damn it, you all provoked all of this. Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stated that it is the Republicans who need to support gun safety measures to stop this kind of violence. Both sides blame each other. Meanwhile, on social media, a new wave of hatred has erupted. Some leftists posted openly joyful responses to social media posts about Kirk, or made sarcastic remarks about the thoughts and prayers that Republicans expressed regarding Kirk's murder. Some conservative social media users, on the other hand, openly accused Democrats who expressed condolences of being responsible for Kirk's death and even called for revenge. And it should be acknowledged that Americans have always been divided and political violence has raged throughout the entire existence of the Republic, which, let me remind you, lost 500,000 people in the Civil War. But Kirk's death showed in general how social media has become a gathering place for those who freely express extreme political views and even call for revenge without any consequences. And at such moments, people often say that political violence and murder are inherently American problems. Well, after all, 4 United States presidents have been killed and several others survived assassination attempts, including Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were both killed in the same year, actually in 1968. Not so long ago, then Democratic Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and Republican Congressman Steve Scalise were seriously wounded in shootings. And the husband of former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, suffered a serious head injury as a result of an attack. And the worst part is that the opponents of those who were attacked usually support the attacker and say that what they did was right. It doesn't matter which side, Republicans or Democrats. And here it's very important to note that whether Kirk's murder will trigger a new wave of violence depends on the reaction of his fellow Republicans from the Make America Great Again movement. A lot will depend on Donald Trump, who himself has repeatedly resorted to radical rhetoric. Just last week he posted a meme on social media, well, he thinks it's a meme, hinting that he's going to send the military to Chicago to deal with migrants. In addition, Donald Trump himself directly sponsored the most notorious outbreak of mass political violence in decades when protesters stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, while trying to overturn the results of the presidential election that Trump lost at the time. And here is Trump, who was very close to Charlie Kirk, could have lowered the level of tension in society. But he stated that only Republicans are subjected to political violence and that something needs to be done about it, about these left liberal activists, which is not true at all. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.